What's going on, everybody? It's your sweet boy, Yammie Noob, back at it once again to deliver you motorcycle content you've come to know and love. Today, we're going to be chatting about license restrictions in the US, what I think about them, why I think we maybe should have them, maybe shouldn't have them, versus the European versions of our licenses. If you haven't yet, go and check out my video on A1 and A2 licenses. That was a pretty cool video I did a lot of research on that, found out and learned a lot about European licenses. It was really cool. I know that my European audience was clamoring for an A2, A1 license video, so go and check that out before we jump into this one. But before we begin, of course, we're going to go run a few errands today. I got my backpack on, as you can see here on the secondary camera. Just bump the shit out of you guys right there. We're going to go pick up the letters for the free entry for this motorcycle. So in case you don't know, this is our giveaway FZ07. Yes, giveaway FZ07. Can you believe it? Man, look at that Leo Vinci. This is a full Leo Vinci system right here. It's got this really cool gold kind of look now that it's been run it a little bit, that it's a little bit hotter down here. This exhaust looks and sounds amazing in my opinion. So let's head out on the road and talk about stuff like we normally would. Of course, no video is complete without the obligatory startup and little throttle blip. Every time I start this bike up, it literally boggles my mind at how loud it is. It's unbelievable. All right, let's get to it. Just like that, through the power of editing and magic, we are out on the bike, enjoying ourselves, having a nice time. Today's a wonderful day in DFW. It's about 60 degrees, nice and a little overcast, kind of sunny. Middle of February, which is amazing that we get this kind of weather here. I think we kind of pay for it in return with our lack of curvy roads. So anyways, today I wanted to chat about license-restricted countries, license restrictions in the US of A. I think here's the thing. When you consider a system that the EU has where they have people start off based on their ages for motorcycles, so like the way it works basically, if you didn't watch that other video, is if you're under a certain age and a certain experience level, you can only get certain motorcycles in the UK and then the rest of the EU, rather, is what I was trying to say. So basically that means that until you're experienced enough and old enough, you go from like a 125cc with a max output, I think, of like 18 kilowatts to an A2 license to your full unrestricted A license. The whole thing takes about 4 years until you're able to get an unrestricted bike, however fast you want. And I think it's done, one, to prevent young people from getting access to such powerful motorcycles at a young age. I do think it's a pretty bad idea to get someone who's, let's say, 17 years old, maybe has had their license for a year, and just plop them down on a Super Duke 1290 or something like that, for example, right? That's not a good idea. But, at the same time, maybe that same 17-year-old has been on dirt bikes his entire life. Maybe he's been riding 450s on closed circuits or something like that. Maybe he's done track work on an R6. But the law wouldn't care about that sort of thing, right? The law would say, no, if you're at this certain age, you cannot have this certain bike. And do I think that that's a pretty rare circumstance? Yes, of course, right? Like how many 17-year-olds are going out there and getting R1s? Not that many, right? But I think overall, what we have to kind of think about is, what is a policy designed for, right? And I'm not a policy expert by any means, but the policy in place is not to necessarily, well, this is a big old clusterfuck, isn't it? What's going on up here? Can I get past? I think we're stopped up here, boys and girls. Okay. We got to rip a Yui. What the hell happened? I think there's like a car flipped over. That's what it looks like. That's crazy. This is like a residential section. How did a car flip over at this intersection? There's a bump over there too. You can't even clear it at more than 20 miles per hour. That is wild. Okay, we gotta go Another direction. All right. Whatever. So, yeah, you have to remember, so what's like a policy for, right? Like, in my opinion, the policy in the EU is designed to protect people. It's designed to make sure that people don't get in over their heads, right? And we, as Americans, we might view that as, you know, the nanny state, perhaps government interference and freedom of choice. But at the same time, guys, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of like you have the freedom to go and kill yourself. That seems a little bit silly to me, right? I honestly would prefer us to have a A1 and A2 style license system here in the United States. I'm gonna Google some statistics around what that kind of looks like in terms of deaths prevented or deaths accounted for, because I mean, I have to see. What I really want to find out is deaths per 100,000 rather than like an absolute number, because the EU has more people than the United States has. So, I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot when you consider absolute numbers. But I can almost guarantee you that it makes for safer riders and safer conditions for everybody. Because that's the other thing you have to remember too. We're not just talking about, you know, making sure that that same 17-year-old kid doesn't go and hurt himself on his R1 that he went and bought. It's about public safety as well. You know, it's not just about limiting individual freedoms or individual choices. It's about ensuring that the public at large is safe, right? That's something that I think a lot of people don't really think about whenever they think about license restrictions. They just think about, oh, the state doesn't want me to have this, you know, R1 at this certain age. But really what it's designed for is to make sure that, you know, by having that R1, you're not going to go out and kill someone's family while you're doing it, you know? Because look, guys, I'll be honest, I think it's a small miracle that motorcycles are still legal in general in today's world. I think if you were to propose the idea to people today, if like motorcycles didn't exist, then you're just say, hey, let's build a rocket ship that anyone can jump on and go nuts with, right? I think, you know, most government entities would be like, no, you can't make that. You know what I mean? You can't have that. So I think it's cool in general that they exist. So I guess the policy question comes down to, is it worth limiting freedom of choice and freedom of acquisition to prevent deaths and to ensure public safety? I would wager so, honestly. I would say that, you know, because, I mean, when you think about it, nearly any government decision or any public policy decision kind of, you know, is thought about in this way. It's like, where does the individual's right end and the public kind of good begin? And, you know, you accessing an R1 at a young age, if that means that on the aggregate it's going to publicly endanger more people, yeah, I would say it's worth it to reduce the risk there, right? But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little torn because as an American myself, I love the fact that, you know, I'm not limited in any capacity to buy whatever bike I want to buy. I started off on an R3, which a lot of people think is a small bike to start off on, but that's actually a bigger bike than most Europeans would be able to start off on. Granted, I started riding when I was 22, so I could have started off on an A2 style bike regardless. So I really enjoyed my journey into motorcycling, and I felt like I did it in a pretty competent way and a way that made sense for me. But yeah, you know, so here's the thing. You could make the case that it's perhaps a bit Darwinian to say, hey, you know, we're just going to let people do whatever they want, and those who are not capable and not good enough are going to crash, and they're not going to ride anymore, and that's okay with us. But is that okay, right? Like, is that the goal that you want? You want people to get injured and to injure others to figure out whether or not they want to ride? I certainly don't want that, right? So I think my final opinion on the subject is that I do think that you know, tiered license restrictions would make a whole lot of sense in the U.S., particularly from the angle that, you know, every other developed country does it, right? All of the EU does it. Australia does it. You know, that's a combined population of probably 850 million people who have A1, A2 restriction style licenses. and it seems to work pretty well for them. I don't understand why we need to be, you know, the exceptional constantly when it comes to something that's as simple and solved as that. So yeah, what do you guys think about America having A1 and A2 license restrictions? Do you think it makes sense? Why or why not? I'd really like to open up the conversation. This is a video I kind of wanted to make since I made the A2. Oh, we gotta get this, you know. So yeah, what do you guys think about license restrictions in the States? Do you think we should do it? Do you think we shouldn't do it? Why? Why not? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And I will see you next time. See you later.